Hello there, welcome to this video all about the Sega Dreamcast and its HDMI mod, which is known as the DCDigital. Now, I just bought this particular console off of eBay as a package with the mod installed. You can of course buy the DCDigital on its own and install it yourself, but if you're like me and have no idea what you're doing with soldering electronics, then it's worth getting someone to do it properly. So that's what happened here. But I say as a package, this has also been completely recapped, which means it's got new capacitors all across the motherboard inside, and it's also had its casing restored to its original colour. So while it's not completely blemish free, as you can see up here, it is very close to looking as new, and it definitely plays better than new. It's very, very good. So let's take a closer look. Retro consoles are notorious for looking rubbish on modern TVs. And this is about as good as I could get out of my old Dreamcast, going through an RGB SCART cable and upscaling it to 1080p through an unbranded upscaler that I've had for some 10 years now. But just look at the difference the DCDigital makes. Unlike most upscaling solutions, the DCDigital doesn't use the Dreamcast's usual analog video signal. Instead, custom hardware intercepts the image signal while it's still digital and converts that to HDMI, which means you get a signal that's much easier for a modern TV to display and makes a Dreamcast look like a modern console, albeit one that's running in standard definition. The DCDigital does attempt to solve the problem of upscaling without adding lag, much like a RetroTink, but it does so in full digital form, which is very cool indeed. There are two main modes for display, which are accessed by holding both triggers, X, A, and pushing start while the system is running and not loading. What most people will be interested in is the true integer scaling. Now, as you probably know, an integer is a whole number, which means the pixels drawn by the game are multiplied exactly, in this case turning 480 lines of resolution into 960, which is exactly double. The same is done for the x-axis too, so the game draws a 2x2 square on the screen for every 1 pixel of the game. The result doesn't exactly fit a 1080p screen, but what is displayed is absolutely crystal clear. To me, these pronounced pixels are a little bit too sharp, so I would actually rather have the clean display of the digital HDMI signal, but let my TV upscale the image from 480p all the way up to 4K. Of course, it's important to note that you're not looking at my TV screen here. Instead, to simulate a 4K upscaling effect in your TV, I've sent the signal from the DCDigital through an Xbox One X using the One Guide app, and I've output from the Xbox at 4K and captured that signal using an Atomos Ninja 5, so the only compression you're seeing here is that added by YouTube. I should add that the line doubling takes place virtually instantaneously, and apparently it's so fast that you can't even notice it between control inputs, so it's essentially lag-free, which is great. I was a little disappointed initially to discover that the top and bottom of the HDMI image was flickering, and the picture itself didn't look 100% stable. However, this is likely some issue around the console trying to deinterlace a PAL image to 480p. So I set the DCDigital to deinterlace 576i with pass-through rather than bob, and the result is a perfectly stable image, albeit still at 50 Hz. But that's where the other mode comes in, which makes the DCDigital an absolute must-have for any Dreamcast fan, especially those with a PAL console.
Hey, it's time to make some crazy money. Are you ready?
The Dreamcast always had support for a VGA cable, which allowed you to connect your Dreamcast to a computer monitor and enjoy the absolute best picture quality with progressive scan rather than interlacing. Now, not every game supports this mode, so games like Hydro Thunder do still display a warning, which means you'll have to go back through the DCDigital's menu to find a setting that works. The VGA picture is absolutely rock solid. Your TV will need to do the upscaling, but that's not likely to be a problem when the signal is this good to start with. But to my absolute delight, the picture quality of VGA wasn't the only plus point of using this mode. It also appears to run games at 60 Hz, even those that never had the option. I suspect this because a great many PAL Dreamcast games suffered from juddering when they ran at 50 Hz. If you watch scenery move across the screen at 50 Hz on some games, you'll see it jump around, while in 60Hz mode it moves completely smoothly. But games like Sega Rally 2, Power Stone and Virtua Fighter 3 TB all suffered from this issue without having the option of a 60Hz mode. And yet, with DCDigital, the problem's gone. For a moment I did wonder if it would even alleviate Sega Rally 2's intermittent frame rate dips, but alas, it still fluctuates between 60 and 30 frames per second. But even so, the scenery moves so much more smoothly, it's akin to playing a remastered version of the game. It's not perfect, as Power Stone definitely has more severe episodes of slowdown in VGA mode, even worse than you're seeing here at times, but it's quite infrequent and certainly not a reason to go back to the old display mode. While a VGA cable itself would likely get the same result, the chances of your modern TV having a VGA port are slim. This, however, converts the VGA signal to the true HDMI standard, and the result is Dreamcast games that look and move better than I've ever seen before. Besides the wonderful picture quality, the DCDigital also has a few other tricks up its sleeve. It's got a Wi-Fi adapter for downloading firmware updates. You also get options for scan lines, which simulates the effect of having pixel rows on a cathode ray TV. Personally, I've never been into simulating scan lines, but I know some people insist on them, so it's probably great to see different thickness settings here. I do feel that they make the picture unnecessarily dark, but they do also make jaggies look a little less pronounced, so that's surely a good thing. There are also some options for forcing VGA or using a widely known switch trick, but 480p HDMI mode looks absolutely fine in my opinion. So was it worth the money? Well, I should just stress that I'm in absolutely no way affiliated with Console Refresh, which is console-refresh on eBay if you want to get one of these from them as well, but I'm happy to pay a fair price for great craftsmanship and hardware, which I believe this is, so I'm a very satisfied customer. And the Dreamcast itself looks gorgeous as well with that refreshed shell. It's been like having a new Dreamcast all over again, and that's a wonderful feeling to recapture. The HDMI converted VGA support is better than I ever imagined, making games move better as well as look cleaner, which is frankly a revelation. While I fully expected to have to make some compromises, and not every mode works perfectly with my setup, it's still been very easy to get great results from this mod. So, if you're at all serious about playing Dreamcast games in the best light, especially if you're in the PAL region, then this is absolutely worthy of your money. Well, that's all for this video. Please check out my channel for more retro gaming videos, as well as music and more, and do leave a comment to say what you think about the DCDigital. Thanks so much for stopping by, and hope to see you again soon. Cheers.